Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where our first story of the day genuinely crosses over with real news. And that's the power of the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 beyond the movie theater. Now, we already know that in Thailand, people have been using the Mockingjay salute to protest against the military coup going on in that country. Just the other day, several students were detained for using the Mockingjay salute at some kind of demonstration or rally with military leaders in attendance. And then also, one of the biggest theater chains in the country has decided not to air Mockingjay Part 1 in any of their theaters. Instead, they'll be showing Woody Allen's Magic in the Moonlight, a much more peaceful film which really only inspires protest against Woody Allen films going forward. But then, of course, China also delayed the release of Mockingjay Part 1 in their country after abruptly canceling the press tour. Presumably, they waited till the last moment to actually watch the film. Now, this is an even bigger deal for Hollywood because China is such a box office rich region, and it's really going to hurt Hollywood where it hurts, and that's their pocketbook. So China has said they will release the film in early 2015, but I strongly believe that they will not. I think that the film is very powerful. I watched it for a second time actually on Sunday night, and the rebellion scenes really are very moving. And they do strike a chord. And on that note, several of you pointed out to me, and that's the reason we're discussing this today, that in Ferguson, they are also using one of the slogans from the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. The very powerful saying from the trailer, but loses no such, punch in the movie, if we burn, you burn with us. That was spray painted on a landmark in St. Louis. And it's interesting to see real-life protests draw inspiration from the movies. If you look at some of the pictures that have gone out on the internet from Ferguson overnight, you can also see a number of protesters wearing Guy Fawkes masks, made very well known to the mainstream. Of course, this is a very prominent figure in the UK, but was popularized by the V for Vendetta first comic book by Alan Moore, a UK citizen, and then of course by the movie with Natalie Portman and oh my goodness, I can't believe I don't remember the guy's name. See, this is what happens when you turn down the Red Skull gig, right? Hugo Weaving. He's such a talented actor. Where is he right now today? That's so bizarre how someone can just come and go so quickly. But certainly popularized the Guy Fawkes mask. Now, I would like to point out that a lot of in these situations when you're getting your inspirational figures for real-life events from pop culture, you're not always filled in as best that you can be. For instance, Mockingjay is a totally fictitious rebellion, but as many of the book readers have pointed out in the last few days, wait until you see Part 2 before you decide that this rebellion is just absolutely perfect. I think Mockingjay goes very far to try and point out that there really are no winners when it comes to these kinds of conflicts. So that's a very important aspect to remember. Then also for Guy Fawkes, he was fighting for a cause that he believed in, but he was an anarchist. I don't believe he intended to hurt anybody because at the time that he blew up or tried to blow up Parliament, but at the same time, an explosion is an explosion. And it really reminds you that there are no current civil leaders or people to lead these protests. There's no Martin Luther King Jr. And by the way, there's no Martin Luther King Jr. because the man was assassinated. And so that might be something that keeps people from stepping up, which is tragic in its own way to see that violence would succeed in quieting that voice. But where's the Gandhi? Where are those that can inspire change without violence? And no one really stepped up to the plate, for the black community since Al Sharpton. And I think Al Sharpton, you have to give the man credit for trying very hard to keep the fight going and to be that spokesperson. But I think he has a real lack of credibility. I don't think he's as inspirational as Martin Luther King Jr. was, or even Malcolm X, who was also, a more violent or, at least more aggressive dissenter to the way things were during the civil rights movement. So if you watch my trailer review for Selma, I discuss, how important it is to have a peaceful leader, but an aggressive one who could focus all this rage. Occupy Wall Street also suffered from the lack of a clear spokesperson. And it's interesting to see, and, with the lack of real people to point to lead, the protesters are looking to entertainment for their inspiration, with Guy Fawkes and the Mockingjay films. And I think that Mockingjay, this brings up the question, does Lionsgate have an obligation to release some kind of literature or put this discussion in have it go in a constructive direction, or are they irresponsible to just let this stuff go out there and have people digest it and interpret it however they happen to do so, and maybe in a way that's mistaken. So I do agree. I do feel personally that Lionsgate has somewhat of a responsibility at this point to harness, or at least, to harness, I guess harness is the right word, to harness the power that they have with their film. They should be very proud they've made such a strong political film. But I think that, and if they're looking for, a selfish reason to do this, if they don't want to be altruistic, they can, think about all the Oscar coverage this would get, and it would make Mockingjay a much stronger Oscar contender to really seriously underline what this film, the power of this film, and to make the Academy aware of that by maybe some kind of PSA, something to help people, and also to point out ways that you can rebel in real life, before you get to the Katniss level of the Red Arrow. All right, so that's the first story of the day. I'm very curious to what you guys think of that. Very serious story, and so I'm excited to hear and very interested to hear your comments down below. All right, let's move into some full-on movie news, and that's that Michelle MacLaren has been given the gig as the Wonder Woman director. I did a whole video on all the directors that were being considered, and as well as my suggestions. I still feel that Neil Marshall is the best person for the job, but I think Michelle MacLaren certainly has her strengths and her weaknesses. I think of everyone they were considering in the female director pool, she's probably the best bet, and I'm going to explain that right now. All right, so what are the good reasons to hire Michelle MacLaren as the director of Wonder Woman? Well, one, I think she's a very male-friendly talent because she comes from Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, and The Walking Dead. She's directed episodes for all three of those shows, which have a very strong male fan base. So I think she has her credibility there with that gender, so they aren't going to feel that it's going to be, all unicorns and rainbows for Wonder Woman. And I think she also seems to be the kind of person, because of working on those shows, who just gets the job done. And she's not going to have an overly feminist bent to her work, which is something I was a little concerned about with some of the other female directors they were considering. And I think Michelle MacLaren knows, bottom line, she wants to make a movie that succeeds, that people want to go and see. And that's of course, the most important thing for not just any movie, but particularly a Wonder Woman movie, which really needs to avoid this, feminazi pitfall. Then also, she's never made a movie before. This is her first movie. So from Warner Brothers' perspective, that's good for two reasons. One, she's cheap. And two, they have more control over her, because they can say, Michelle, you've never made a movie. We're the experts. And then she can just point to several, like Man of Steel and other movies they've made, and say, I don't agree. But I don't think that'll work, obviously. And she's probably just very happy to have moved up to feature films after doing an excellent job on the small screen. So those are the good reasons. And I'd like to take a little bit of a side detour here to talk about the fact that Zack Snyder will be producing this film, and I think it's interesting that he seems to have taken over the DC Cinematic Universe. I would say refuses to let go, because I think he knows that as soon as another talent comes in there that he doesn't have his fingerprints all over, and it succeeds perhaps greater than any of his films, he'll lose his grip on the DC Cinematic Universe, which I think fans call tenuous at best. I think fans have been calling for him to let go for quite some time now, and I think he doesn't want to give them any opportunity to say, see how well it works when he's not there? So he's not letting go. But I think that DC really needs to say, hey, Snyder, you're our Joss Whedon, very important, but we still need a Kevin Feige. There's this producer, Charles Roven, who's apparently included on all these things. He works with Zack Snyder and Deborah Snyder, Zack's wife, but he seems to me like obviously a yes man, because the films aren't getting any better. The whole point of the businessman in charge is that he does a good job shepherding this entire operation, which is what Kevin Feige does. All right, so what are the bad things about Michelle MacLaren as a person to direct this film? Well, on the fan side, she's never directed a feature film before, as was the same situation with her fellow Game of Thrones director, Alan Taylor. Now, Taylor had actually done like 1 or 2 films over the course of his career, but really nothing. He was primarily, a television director, and I think that lack of experience was what hurt Thor: The Dark World. I think I think that they were like, hey, it'll be Game of Thrones, but with Thor, and that's not what they got under any circumstances. I think that they once again underestimated the importance of the writing staff in television. Television is the way it is and is as strong as it is because it's ruled by writers, whereas film is largely ruled by directors and producers. So until, like what they're doing with Universal with the writing staff, putting them really largely in charge of creating the cinematic universe, at least at first, that's the direction to go. And if you want to compete with television, just to take their directors, as you can see, Does not work, but we'll see. If Alan Taylor, bombs with Terminator Genesis, which it seems likely, I think he'll probably end up going back to television. So I think that that's bad. That's a bad situation. Then also, this is what else concerns me. It's been said that Michelle MacLaren will not only direct the film, but she'll be working to help develop it, because apparently it's not done. The script isn't done. They haven't even come up with an outline, apparently, that they're fully happy with. And they haven't released the names of the writers that are working on it. But they said, oh, Michelle MacLaren, this is going to be great. She's going to sit down with the writers, and they're going to hammer out, Wonder Woman movie. And to that I say, well, look, here are some problems. First of all, Michelle MacLaren, she might be a great director, but she's not a writer. She's not a writer-director. I looked it up. She wrote one TV movie a while ago. That's it. She's not a writer. And I think that I don't know why. I think Michelle MacLaren didn't want to turn this job down no matter what. But I think in a perfect world, she would have been like, hey, I can't wait to direct your movie, but I'm not a writer, so maybe we should get some better writers on this, because now I'm concerned about my feature film debut. So I don't think they should have brought in someone like that. And also, I would say the fact that they're moving forward so aggressively with the film that has a release date, a star, and now a director, but no script, and they're allowing just anyone to contribute to developing this script, is very worrisome to me. It seems like a very, very desperate situation where they're like, we have no idea how to make a Wonder Woman movie. This thing's a mess. Let's just keep moving forward, and hopefully having a female superhero movie about Wonder Woman will be enough to get people to buy a ticket. And we'll fix it on the sequel. It's a very dangerous approach to take. So I'm very concerned about the Wonder Woman movie. I think Michelle MacLaren, they haven't just totally derailed with her at the helm, so hopefully this thing will just keep moving and by some miracle work out. But again, I still feel Neil Marshall would have been the best choice. Neil Marshall, you can check out my original video. I'll put a link at the end here about the director discussion I had a couple of weeks ago about this. But just in short, Neil Marshall directed 2 Game of Thrones episodes. Which ones? The most famous ones, Blackwater and The Watchers on the Wall. He also directed The Descent, which was a female action horror movie. He did a great job. And he's a writer-director. So he can craft this film and help the directors out. And he has the experience to do so. He also did Centurion, pretty darn good film actually, which was took place with Roman soldiers. So he has that kind of Greco-Roman background as well. He's done battle sequences. He can handle period pieces. I think he's a great choice. And unfortunately, he will never get the job because they've given it to Michelle MacLaren. All right, so what's the third story of the day? The third story of the day is Christoph Waltz. There's a couple big stories yesterday, but there's only so much room for headlines on Morning Movie News, so stay tuned tomorrow, and then there'll be no Morning Movie News, by the way, through the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, but still plenty of Beyond the Trailer content. But Morning Movie News will return on Monday after tomorrow's episode. But anyway, Christoph Waltz is apparently up to play the new Bond villain in Bond 24. Apparently they're going to announce this any day now, probably right after Thanksgiving. I have mixed feelings about it. I feel bad for Christoph Waltz. I'm a big Christoph Waltz fan, but he just keeps being cast in the villain role. And let's face it, he's never going to be able to top Colonel Hans Landa from Inglourious Basterds, unless he just totally does away with the comedic element and just goes for pure evil, which maybe they could do in the Bond 24 film, and maybe this will work out wonderfully. Also, Sam Mendes is directing, fantastic director, obviously, and I think that since Quentin Tarantino didn't pick Christoph Waltz up again for his third film, Hateful Eight, after working with him and getting him 2 Oscars in Inglourious Basterds and Django Unchained, I think Christoph Waltz would be crazy not to take this opportunity to work with Sam Mendes and to be a part of this brand. But I don't know how good an idea it is overall. So I can't fault Christoph Waltz for taking it, but I feel, what's it going to do for his career in the long run? Unless this is a purely evil villain and there's something really iconic about it, it's just going to be another watered-down villain role for him. And I think that could hurt the Bond film as well, because everyone's just like, I think Christoph Waltz hasn't captured anyone's imagination as a villain since Hans Landa. Nobody was particularly interested in, Horrible Bosses 2. He's not really used prominently in the trailers. And also the Green Hornet, you might recall, he was the villain there. No one really paid any attention to that. I mean, you could argue for other reasons, but still, he didn't capture anyone's imagination in his role, which was what he was supposed to do. I wish Christoph Waltz would aggressively move in the opposite direction and maybe try to do like a romantic movie. He has quite a number of female fans. Or maybe even like a romantic thriller, something. I mean, he did something with Roman Polanski, as you might recall. It was an adaptation of a very famous play. I forget the name of it. It was with Kate Winslet, and it was considered a pretty big deal, but it just never got any attention. Even when it was finally released, it didn't get really any awards attention. It didn't get any audience attention. I can't even remember the name of it. That's how little attention that it got. So that was another instance where working with a great director didn't do so much for Christoph Waltz. So we'll see. But I'm curious to what you guys think of this. Are you like, yes, Christoph Waltz is such a great villain, he's going to make Bond 24 even better? Or are you like, that's like a generic villain, I'm a little less excited? Just write your thoughts down below on that, and let's get over to the viewer question, where two people actually had the same type of question. So I thought with two people asking it, and one with a great intro to their question that I just couldn't ignore, I decided this would be the perfect viewer question for the day. So the person who really got my attention was Kobe Grief. And Kobe says, "Hi Grace, I've been watching your channel for almost 2 years now and have finally thought of a question that I would love for you to answer." Well, after 2 years of pondering a question, how can I not answer it, right? So Kobe says, I'm a graduating senior at UMass Amherst. Congratulations. And one of my career goals would be to work in marketing and advertising in the movie or even TV industry. Specifically, I'm interested in dealing with promotional work like movie posters and trailers. I love the way a single poster or 2-minute trailer can cause a person to feel that they need to see a particular movie. Any advice would be helpful. Keep up the great work. Great question, Kobe. And as I said yesterday with Lindsay's animation question, I love when people want to work in different fields in the entertainment business because they can be just as rewarding and successful. And so I'm happy to help you get into that area. But Billionaire Boy Toy had a similar question yesterday saying, I want to get into movie financing. Now, Bun Bachesco had a very good response saying, have you tried looking at the career section of a film studio's website? That's great advice. As I noted, I went in there and commented myself. But to both Kobe and Billionaire Boy Toy, especially for these kind of jobs that are in departments, that are actual jobs in the studio, they're not one-offs for each film, they do have listings for people they're looking for in the studio websites. You can go under careers, and they have listings for people they're looking, and you can just send in your resume, like with any company. So definitely go and check out these companies' websites, these studios' websites for any career opportunities that might be there. Now, Kobe, for your question, studios don't cut their own trailers. They do have a discussion with the trailer house, but there are trailer houses that cut trailers. So you have to decide if you want to work like in publicity with posters and such, or if you want to work, and even in publicity, there's people who handle the ad campaigns for a movie, and then there are people who also handle, the red carpets and the interviews and sections like that. And then, of course, there's independent trailer houses. So if you want to work in trailers, you need to go and apply to maybe get an internship there while you're graduating, but see if you can get a job there. That might be difficult, and they might be primarily looking for editors at a place like that, so maybe you're better off heading to the publicity department of a major studio. So what you want to do there is, again, check the career section. An internship is always ideal for those of you who are still in school to get your foot in the door and to meet the right people and have them consider hiring you. If you cannot intern any longer, then look for those positions. And just also, try to really think about exactly what you want to contribute. And also, I also say to you, one of the greatest quotes that I think that has influenced my life, and it comes from, and I think it could influence yours, unbelievably, The Men Who Stare at Goats. It's the only good takeaway from this movie. It's the George Clooney film, and he says, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's like, my life was very hard. It was like a fish trying to swim upstream. But then when I found the right path, all the obstacles seem to largely fall away. Now, there's never an obstacle-free path, but you won't feel like you're swimming upstream. So I'm glad, Kobe, that you have a general area that you want to work in so that you can find out what opportunities arise for you, and you can be free to pursue them without being like, oh, well, that's not the dream job I had in mind. I think it's very smart for everybody to have a general idea of what they want to do and then march in that direction and see where they end up. As long as you end up in the general vicinity, you're doing much better than most people because, make your dreams something that are attainable instead of putting so many caveats on them that you'll never accomplish them because they're impossible. So anyway, Kobe, that's what I would do. I would go and check out the careers website. Make sure you do your research into what department you want to actually be in. And publicity is a really wonderful job to have. Very interesting. You're really involved. You get to go to visit sets and to see what's going on so you can understand how better to promote it. And I think it's a very exciting career. And I wish you luck. So that's what I recommend. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories, the viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.